Imagine waking up one morning to discover that your entire bank account completely wiped. Now imagine that a million times over, billions of dollars simply vanished. Investors, celebrities, everyday people, gone. Not because of a hack, not because of a market crash, but because one of the most celebrated geniuses in modern finance was building a house of cards, using other people's money. For years, he was treated like the next Warren Buffett of crypto, a quirky prodigy with messy hair and bigger dreams. A billionaire who claimed he wanted to give away everything, until everything disappeared. This is the story of how a single company rose to dominate the crypto world, and how, in just a few days, it collapsed so violently that it shook global markets, destroyed fortunes, and exposed one of the largest financial frauds in American history. And it all started with one man and one idea. In 2019, a 26-year-old MIT graduate named Sam Bankman-Fried, known simply as SBF, teamed up with his friend Gary Wang to launch a cryptocurrency exchange called FTX. It was ambitious, bold, and built on a foundation few fully understood. But the dream would explode into one of the biggest financial scandals in history. SBF had already made a name for himself in crypto. He had co-founded a quantitative trading firm called Alameda Research, a fast-moving operation that traded billions, capturing inefficiencies across global markets. That success gave him capital and credibility. Out of that success came FTX, an exchange built for the future, positioned not just as a place to buy and sell crypto, but to trade complex derivatives, options, and leverage. From the beginning, FTX's vision was clear: make crypto trading powerful, accessible, and efficient. It expanded fast. By mid-2021, FTX closed a funding round of roughly $900 million, valuing the company at around 18 billion. High-profile investors scrambled for a piece. Venture capital firms begged to get in. SBF looked like a visionary, disheveled, barefoot, wearing shorts, but speaking with confident clarity about how crypto could reshape finance. He bought out Binance's stake in the company for about $2 billion, reinforcing FTX's independence. He moved the headquarters to the Bahamas, an environment with lighter regulation and more room to move aggressively. The media loved him. Investors adored him. Politicians welcomed him. FTX wasn't just a business. It became a brand of trust in a chaotic industry. But behind the scenes, a shadow loomed. Alameda Research, SBF's first company, quietly remained intertwined with FTX. Very intertwined. Alameda borrowed huge sums from FTX, and often those loans were backed by FTT, a token created by FTX itself, the same token whose value depended on FTX's success. It was an elegant feedback loop, until it wasn't. Yet at the time, the outside world saw none of this. In early 2022, FTX launched a $2 billion venture fund to invest in the future of blockchain, gaming, and digital innovation. It secured enormous sponsorships, celebrities, and naming rights. It became the face of mainstream crypto adoption. And Sam Bankman-Fried became the industry's unofficial ambassador. But cracks began to appear. In August 2022, regulators sent FTX a cease and desist letter, warning that the company had misled customers by suggesting their assets were FDIC insured. They were not. The public did hear about the warning, but only in fragments. A few headlines surfaced, mostly in niche financial outlets, reporting that the FDIC had told FTX to stop using the term insured. But the story never caught fire. It was drowned out by the hype and the belief that FTX was untouchable. Reactions by the public showed a mix of emotions. On crypto forums like Reddit, many users expressed concern and confusion. Some pointed out that they had seen FDIC-insured language around FTX and wondered what it meant. Others said they already assumed uninsured crypto risk was obvious and weren't hugely surprised, but they were upset about potential misleading marketing. More than a few saw it as a PR screw-up more than a malicious fraud, though not all agreed. But in the end, The average customer didn't panic, because SBF didn't let them. He dismissed the issue on Twitter, calling it a misunderstanding. Influencers repeated his explanation. The media moved on, and just like that, what should have been glaring red flags and a flashing red alarm simply faded into the background. Confidence in FTX remained high, even as the ground beneath it continued to quietly erode. Then the crypto market began to crash. From spring through late 2022, the industry was hit with disaster after disaster. A major stablecoin called Terra collapsed, wiping out tens of billions of dollars. Hedge funds that had bet everything on crypto defaults began to implode. Companies froze withdrawals. Liquidity evaporated almost overnight. Confidence across the entire ecosystem collapsed, and prices followed. Through all of this, SBF positioned himself as a savior. FTX swooped in to rescue failing companies, buying up distressed assets and offering lifelines to lenders that were already collapsing. He framed it as protecting the industry. But behind the scenes, Alameda, and by extension FTX, was already dangerously exposed, drowning in losses that no bailout could hide forever. Then came November 2022, the month that changed everything. On November 2nd, a leaked balance sheet revealed that Alameda Research, a firm trusted to be one of the most sophisticated traders in crypto, held an alarming amount of its assets in FTT, a token created by FTX itself. Not dollars, not Bitcoin, not stable reserves, but a token whose value existed only because people believed in FTX. Let me explain why this was so horrifying. This meant Alameda wasn't standing on solid ground. It was standing on a foundation FTX had built for itself. If the price of FTT ever dropped, Alameda would collapse instantly. And because FTX and Alameda were secretly intertwined, that collapse would pull FTX down with it. It exposed a dangerous truth. It wasn't just unstable. It was circular. Each company was propping up the other, using money that wasn't really there. It was like building two giant towers out of blocks. But both towers were standing on the exact same tiny toy block. As long as no one touched it, everything looked huge and impressive. But the moment that little block wobbled, both towers came crashing down at the same time. This revelation shook confidence. Then it shattered. 2 days later, Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao announced that Binance would liquidate its massive FTT holdings. A move that signaled a total loss of faith in FTX. Panic spread instantly. FTT's price plunged. Customers rushed to withdraw funds from FTX. Billions began leaving the exchange in a matter of hours. What followed was a digital bank run. Users tried withdrawing money, but the withdrawals slowed, then stopped. FTX didn't have the funds. The liquidity that SBF promised wasn't there. The empire that claimed to be the safest exchange in crypto had been hiding how fragile it truly was. In a desperate attempt to survive, SBF approached Binance to buy FTX and rescue the company. For one day, it looked like salvation might be possible. But after reviewing FTX's internal finances, Binance backed out. The hole was simply too large. It was over. On November 11, 2022, FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Over 100 affiliated entities collapsed with it, including Alameda Research. SBF resigned as CEO. Billions of customer funds were missing. When bankruptcy specialist John J. Ray III, the same expert who cleaned up Enron, examined the company, he described it as the worst corporate failure he had ever seen. Financial statements were unreliable. Controls were non-existent. Customer funds had been commingled with Alameda's trading accounts. Billions had been moved in secret. Employees had used auto-deleting messaging apps for critical decisions. No board oversight, no accounting discipline, no separation between customer assets and company assets. It was chaos disguised as genius. And it didn't stop there. Then came the criminal investigation. In December 2022, SBF was arrested in the Bahamas and extradited to the United States. As prosecutors built their case, insiders flipped Alameda CEO Caroline Ellison, FTX co-founder Gary Wang, FTX engineering chief Nishad Singh. All pleaded guilty, all cooperated. Their testimonies painted a disturbing picture. Customer funds had been used to cover Alameda's losses, make political donations, buy luxury real estate, and fuel high-risk bets, all while customers believed their deposits were safe. The trial that followed was swift and decisive. Prosecutors accused SBF of orchestrating one of the largest financial frauds in American history. The jury agreed. In March 2024, Sam Bankman-Fried was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison and ordered to forfeit more than $11 billion. The judge condemned his actions as a massive betrayal of trust. The fallout from FTX's collapse rippled across the globe. Confidence in centralized crypto platforms plummeted. Regulators tightened their grip. Entire sectors of the crypto economy reeled from the aftershock. But the lesson was painfully simple. Innovation cannot replace accountability. Charisma cannot replace transparency. And no amount of genius can save a company built on deception. FTX's rise was fueled by hype, ambition, and the illusion of safety. Its fall exposed a truth that shook the financial world to its core. Even the most trusted platforms can crumble when built on unstable foundations. Sam Bankman-Fried once promised to change the future of finance, and in a way, he did. Just not in the way he intended. Instead of building a legacy of innovation, he left behind a warning. A reminder that trust is fragile. Systems need structure. And that even in the digital age, greed can still destroy everything. Here's the part that matters today. 3 years since this incident had happened. The collapse of FTX didn't just end one or two companies. It reshaped the entire crypto landscape. It forced regulators to push for stronger oversight, pressured exchanges to prove they actually hold customer assets, and it made millions of investors more cautious about who they trust. New laws were drafted. Proof of reserves became a trend. And centralized platforms learned that the days of operating in the shadows were over. FTX didn't just leave a crater. It changed the rules of the game. The rise and fall of FTX isn't just the story of a company. It's a reminder of how fast trust can be built and how instantly it can disappear. Fortunes were created, and in the same breath, fortunes were destroyed. And one of the biggest names in crypto went from celebrated genius to global cautionary tale in a matter of days. If this story showed anything, it's that in the world of money, power, and ambition, nothing is ever as stable as it seems. Thank you for staying until the end. And if you found this deep dive interesting, make sure to like the video and drop a comment. It helps the channel more than you know. I'll see you in the next one.